They say cameras never lie, but sometimes they show things you were never meant to see. David worked as a night security guard in an empty corporate office building downtown. It was an easy job. Boring, really. Most nights he sat in his chair, sipping cheap coffee and staring at the glow of the CCTV monitors. The building had 8 cameras: the lobby, the elevators, the stairwell, the parking lot, and a few long corridors. At night, those corridors stretched into grainy black and white tunnels, empty but endless. But tonight, something felt different. Around 2:40 a.m., David noticed movement on camera 4, the hallway just outside his office. At first, he thought it was a glitch. The image flickered, static crawling across the screen. Then he froze. A man was walking slowly toward the camera. David leaned closer. His heart skipped. The man wore the same security uniform, same badge, same flashlight hanging at his side. It was him. The figure stopped just outside the office door. On the monitor, the other David stared directly into the camera. No expression, no movement. Just watching? David's mouth went dry. He hadn't left his chair all night. His flashlight was still at his side. He glanced toward the office door. It was closed, silent. He turned back to the monitor. The other David lifted a hand and knocked. 3 slow, heavy knocks. The real door, inches from him, remained silent. No sound carried through. But on the screen, he watched his double knock again. David grabbed his radio, whispering into static, "Control, this is Post 7. I think I've got a situation." No reply. He tried again. Still static. When he looked back, the figure on the screen was gone. The hallway was empty. David exhaled shakily, rubbing his eyes. Maybe it was a trick of the light. Maybe he had nodded off without realizing. But then camera 6, the stairwell, flickered. There he was again. The other David stood halfway down the stairs, staring up at the camera, expressionless. The feed stuttered, freezing for half seconds at a time like an old VHS tape. But each frozen frame showed the double closer, 1 step higher. Step, freeze, step, freeze, until he reached the landing and stopped, looking directly into the lens. David's stomach churned. He switched cameras rapidly. Lobby, elevators, parking lot, empty, empty, empty. Back to camera 6, gone. David stood, his chair screeching against the floor. His pulse hammered in his ears. He checked the office door again, then peeked out into the hall. Empty, silent. When he turned back, every monitor flickered at once. Static tore across all 8 screens. For a moment, all he could see were distorted shapes, warped faces, overlapping shadows, and then clarity. Every screen showed him 8 versions of David, each standing in front of each camera, staring directly into the lens. Some smiled faintly. Some tilted their heads. One pressed his face right up against the camera, distorted, unblinking. David staggered back, knocking over his coffee. His throat tightened as every version began to move. Each one out of sync, like broken reflections in shattered mirrors. One in the lobby started walking toward the elevators. Another turned down the corridor. The one in the stairwell began climbing again, step by step. They were spreading, moving through the building, surrounding him. David grabbed his flashlight and bolted out of the office. His boots slammed against the tiles as he ran down the corridor, glancing at every camera he passed. But each camera now showed the same thing, him, running, but always a half second ahead, as if the copies knew his moves before he did. He stopped in front of the elevator, jamming the button. The doors slid open with a metallic groan. Empty. He stepped inside. Pressed the button for the lobby. The doors closed. The elevator jerked downward, then the lights cut out. The emergency light flickered on, casting the walls in pale red. David's reflection stared back at him in the mirrored surface. But something was wrong. The reflection wasn't moving. David lifted his hand. His reflection did not. Then it smiled. The elevator shuddered to a stop. The doors opened onto a floor that shouldn't exist. No carpeting, no lights, just endless concrete hallways stretching in both directions. David stepped out cautiously, gripping his flashlight. The air was colder here, damp, filled with the faint sound of buzzing, like static. From the corner of his eye, he saw movement. Down the hallway, one of the doubles stepped into view. Its uniform torn, face twisted, mouth open like it was screaming. But no sound came out. Another appeared behind him. Then another. Dozens of Davids began pouring from the shadows. Each slightly wrong, faces blurred, eyes too dark. Movements jittering like broken video frames. They whispered in static voices, "You shouldn't be here. You're not the original. You're not the original." David turned and ran. His flashlight beam bounced wildly as he tore through hallway after hallway, each identical, endless, looping back on itself. No matter where he turned, the monitors followed. CRT screens mounted on the walls, flickering to life as he passed. Each screen showed him, but not running, watching, smiling, waiting. Finally, he burst through a heavy steel door and stumbled into the parking garage. His lungs burned, every muscle screaming. For a moment, it was silent, empty. Then he saw it. In the corner of the garage, facing away, stood a single figure. David froze. Slowly, the figure turned. It was him, but older. Wrinkled, tired, his own face, aged decades. The older double shook his head and whispered, "I told you not to look." The lights in the garage exploded into static. When the building staff arrived the next morning, the security office was empty. The monitors were still running, each screen showing the same grainy loop. David, sitting calmly at the desk, staring into the camera and smiling.